afternoon. I don't know whether the people join in different continents. And today is our topic. We just need to get to know Marketing Cloud Mobile Connect. So last session we covered the mobile SMS messages, and this time we are going to cover the in-app notifications, right? So I don't know how many of them worked on in-app notification setup with Marketing Cloud, as compared with Mobile Connect. We have Mobile Connect. We have under Mobile Connect, we do have three areas, right? So ideally, one with sending SMSs. So ideally, you can see in Marketing Cloud, you can have the Mobile Connect. Under the Mobile Connect, you do have this uh, mobile connect, and you have mobile push, and you do have the group connect as well, right? Ideally, you have three. Last time we connected Mobile Connect, and this time I'm going to showcase the in-app notifications, which is nothing but push. And the next session tomorrow, we're going to cover about the group connect as well. Okay, so let me go back to the presentation again, and quickly I'll take you through the agenda. Today our agenda, I'm going to start with introduction, and we start with what is mobile push and what is exactly the mobile push does in our daily life with Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And after that, we can go through the in-app notifications, what are all the pitfalls and the surprises we see normally in day-to-day life. And after that, we can go with some platform demo, how we can set up the messages, the in-app messages, how the configuration works ideally, and what are all the surprising elements that you can see. And is there any custom notifications that we can build, custom journey activities, right? And if any questions and answers, I can happy to help you out. Okay. So coming to myself, Anindra, and you can follow me on at the rate Arigachetta, and with my LinkedIn Fanindra Arigachetta. About myself, I'm a CTO working with one of the platinum consulting partner company in Singapore, and I'm an enterprise architect with Salesforce and AWS. And I'm a group leader for Marketers Group in Singapore, and as well as a Slack chapter group. I'm a marketing champion with 34 certifications, which include 3 Velocity and MuleSoft certified as well. And again, I'm certified in CDP and Interaction Studio. So I'm a trailblazer mentor, speaker. I have a blog, salesforce.wordpress.com, which you can follow me, and you can get some more updates on this, right? So let's jump into our session. I don't know how many of them. So I'm telling you this, all the content I've captured from ben.com, salesforceben.com. So some of the content I've captured from their site as well, and just use that. So coming to a mobile push, I don't know how many of them know what it does in Marketing Cloud, right? I personally like mobile push because this is one of the great way of communication for any of the retail customers or non-retail customers, or any other industry which you want to get immediate assistance. Because push, which we can't able to ignore it, because we have to see the push notifications, a kind of a talk kind of a sound where you can go and then get through it. But in Marketing Cloud, it allows you to send some push notifications to their customers. That's not at all, because it offers a silent notifications, as I said. So when you kept your mobile in silent as well, so you'll get notifications in the backend, and those notifications are in a different way. We can calling as in-app messaging, Bluetooth beacons, and geolocations as well. So all these ideas which we can implement using Salesforce Mobile Push under Mobile Studio, right? So you can see the interface, how it look like as a person, as a marketing manager, as a campaign manager or developer. What many ways that you can create a message. You can see outbound message, location entry, location exit, beacon, inbox messages. So you could have a different kind of a templates available for push notifications. Ideally, we're calling as a push templates, right? This is how the screen look like. I'll logging into it and I'll showcase as well with different dog altogether. So no worries. I'll go through each and every template, the benefits of it. So this is how the mobile push ideally works. And the most important thing, I think everyone can understand. I feel compared to the mobile connect, I feel mobile push is quite easier for me because I do 60% of my work, and the 40% of work can be done by mobile developers. Because every company, if you want to implement a mobile push, the company registered the iOS and Android to the respective stores, because they're gonna build an app, right? They're gonna build an app in Android, and they can build an app in iOS. And then what they do is they'll use any other their own framework ideally, but it is a complete component where they can build an application, they deploy it to their respective stores, right? But when we would like to communicate with their existing mobile apps, what are all the implementation steps required in Marketing Cloud, right? Number one, we have to provision the app for mobile push. Number two, we have to create the Marketing Cloud Connected app. I'll showcase where the Marketing Cloud Connect app look like. After that, we have to integrate the Marketing Cloud SDK, and we need to test the end-to-end connection, whether the contacts, whether the subscribers are coming into our Salesforce Marketing Cloud or not, right? So these are all the 4 implementation steps that we would like everyone to understand, and we will go through step by step how it looked like. Okay. Step number 1: how you can provision the app for mobile push. I'm not sure how many are in this group which are really technical to understand the SDK concept and an SSL certificate concept. But ideally, no worries. We'll explain. We'll go through a step-by-step process to understand, to make them understandable, everyone. So the first step is to process. We need to start provisioning of your apps for the pushes, right? Because somebody implemented an app which we don't have a communication, which haven't connected together for sending messages. What we have to do is we'll start with the provisioning. So there is a slight different process altogether between Android and iOS, because both are different companies altogether. They have their own regulations, standards, documentations, or setup is required, right? So let's go to iOS first. So for iOS, as I said, 60% we do our work, 40% let the Android or iOS developer can take care. Okay. What we do is we need to ask our developers to create 2 iOS Apple push notification service, nothing but 2 SSL certificates as a best practice. People sometimes, some customers comes to me saying that, funny, I think one is enough. I think let's connect to production and test and go live. But ideally, I can't able to recommend that solutions. I always recommend to do everything in first sandbox, which is nothing but another BU, a test BU, okay, and one for production, right? So ideally, when you start implementing any mobile push, requesting everyone to have 2 SSL certificates, because these certificates are really important to establish a secure connection between your Marketing Cloud, Apple, and your app. And make sure it is very, very important to save the certificates, as they will need in the next steps, because I'll tell you the certificates. In order to get the complete step-by-step information, how to provision and all, what kind of certificates and all, just click on this. There is an SDK information available, provision for push, the Marketing Cloud SDK. I'll ping you this GitHub URLs so that everyone can understand very clearly. Later sessions can use this as well. I'll put it here. Okay. So you see here, right? Step number 1, as I said, we need to create an SSL certificate, which is a key file, .p8 auth key file. So in certificate and identity and profile, so you have an option in Apple. You can go and then you can get the .p8 auth key file. You have to put the respective descriptions and do a complete step-by-step information, right? And then you have to download and generate that key, and then just store that key in a text file and then put it in your download folder. I'll tell you when we required this. Okay. So as I said, to save the resulting text file with P8 file extension, and the key is not saved in your developer account, and make sure it should be download and put it in a proper downloadable folder. Okay. There's one way. There's a .p8 will be supported for auth. There's another .p12 certificate as well. So either both can work ideally, because some of the developers, leverage. They can go and then write the code under Xcode. Xcode is the kind of library where the iOS can go and then write the code. So they have to use this P12 certificate to configure with Marketing Cloud Mobile Push app, right? So before a person has to configure this certificate, so they must be select the iOS Apple Push Notification Services SSL certificate type. So it'll ask you what kind of certification type you require. So you just need to select the iOS Apple Push Notification Service SSL, right? So once you configure this, The next step is to set up your push apps. Once the development of your push sandbox, once your certificate provision has been done, so you have to go and then configure, you have to create a new application in Marketing Cloud. You have to log in with Marketing Cloud, and I'll showcase that ideally how it works in the later point, how you can create an app and how to provide a respective name suggestion for development app. What is app name underscore dev underscore APNS, and for production you can have app name underscore prod underscore APNS. It's the best practices always to have this kind of names. And after that they'll ask you to, if you look at this, right, so once you create this SDK, once you create an application, what it does, it'll give you access token and app ID. And here this is a file icon where you can set up your mobile push icon for your organization, and then the endpoint that they'll hand over it to you, right? So all these configurations we can be able to complete for P8 certificate. And for P12 certificate, once you create an app inside your mobile push, so you'll have the same information that I'll go through at the time of platform demo as well. Right, once you configure this, so there's a concept, once you create an application in your mobile push Marketing Cloud, so there is two types. Like there is a different kind of an SDK. Option one is with CocoaPads, because CocoaPads is the iOS specially built kind of technology where they can leverage those SDKs, which is supported. So ideally, if people want to use a CocoaPads in iOS, so what they have to do is they have to download this SDK, and then they have to deploy this SDK with command lines. They can use their XC workspace, because sometimes some people use their installation process with Xcode, because I'm preferable to do Xcode because it's just an automatic, and I don't want to use a manual, because Xcode gives a lot of comfortability for me, because I personally use Xcode all the time when building mobile apps. And for second option, you can implement SDK manually, download an SDK, and then put it in a respective folder with XC framework. Once the application has been projected, once application has been retrieved and it's a zip file, ideally you can unzip and then put it in a respective folder, and then put the target where you want to deploy this application, the project, and all the details using Xcode. And after that, you can add a Marketing Cloud SDK framework to Blink framework and libraries in the target general settings. And after that, you can add the bundle of all those resources into your target build phase, and put an object as a link flags, because it always required to put in a build settings. Otherwise, when you run the app, so you won't get any kind of issues. You have to follow all these kind of settings before we process to the next step. After that, once you add the SDK, ideally you have to configure the SDK. So it's a simple step. What ideally people can do is, so you just add the SDK header in Marketing Cloud SDK with base plus h. You just copy this entire code, and then use access token, app ID, endpoint, and all this. You can just put it here. I normally prefer to put it in a separate .txt file and then call directly here. That I do all the time. I don't want to hard code everything into the SDK controller class, because that's what it'll give me a lot of comfortability when I deploy this code to the production application, because I don't use else condition, because I want to manage both the apps in a different aspect. Really don't know what happens exactly, because that's where I created two apps for myself, one for sandbox, one for production. For downtime, I'll use sandbox to test all the solutions and then deploy it to prod all the time. But people prefer, I think I prefer to have a two apps kind of a solution rather than one for dev, one for production, right? Let's copy this entire code. Once you copy this entire code, so there are some data protection policies which you need to add for your application. Make sure it has to be unique, and then it should be intact with your Marketing Cloud application. So once you complete this SDK provisioning, SDK adding, so you just apply some foreground, background kind of a thing. Authentication is done. After that, you just need to wait for some time so that the provision will take some time, and then the resultant will come automatically after once the SDK has been set up. The next step is implementation of push. So before starting this, make sure we need to provision our app to align with the push notifications. And you see here, so here there is a target capability settings available under the app. Once you add the SDK code, add the settings, connected app, auth token, and all the stuff. So here you'll get a signing settings, one with the bundle identifier, the provisioning profiles, the signing certificate, right? Where we have downloaded the signing certificate, that P8 P12. Just browse it, get the certificate up and running here. After that, you need to set the app delegate class to adhere the your application delegate and notification control panel. Ideally, this is just a simple class which you have to add it. Under this, you have to extend the SDK configuration code. Just follow this entire code, which gets all the access token from Marketing Cloud, which include the builder code and app setup, app delegations, handler class, and you just need to pass some of the URLs back to the SDK for provisioning and to test the connections as well. And this class is really important. This is where it has all the details. After that, you have to put some protocols, because protocols are always required to have support of your push registration for app delegate class. Once you set up this, what will happen is it'll ask you for it'll take some time to get the functionality up and running to manage all the notifications, because the registration takes some time and it has all the tracking and everything has to be enabled. Once this is done ideally, so you can migrate your entire SDK, the migration steps ideally. So sometimes once you enable the push and everything, the code, everything, what will happen is it automatically starts running, and then you will see some kind of contacts coming into your platform. Because how the contacts coming into your platform is, whenever the person downloads your app and when the person registers, like when you have create an app, when you register install an app, right? So automatically sometimes the iOS will have the basic information that automatically give you an access to, and that sends information to Marketing Cloud. But sometimes I'm insisting the app team that or app customers that register yourself in order to get some updates. So what they do is they'll register with first name, last name, mobile ID or email number, whatever you ask, registration panel. So all the data along with the device ID will comes to Marketing Cloud, because the device ID is really, really important. Without that, we can't able to send any notifications. That is our subscriber key ideally, right? So this is how the steps required for iOS. At the same time, we do have a steps for Android as well, because iOS and Android will work independently. As I said, for Android, you have to retrieve the legacy server key and sender ID from Google Firebase, because these items will need some next steps to what making a note of them. So when you look at Android, right, I'll copy this. So this is Android. And if you look at Android, right, you look at iOS, that what I've explained, the SDK, use the same code for put the configuration setting, handler class, adding the configuration, meta XML tags and all this stuff, right? But here you see, in order to start provisioning with Google, you just need some legacy server key and sender ID for your app, so that you can put the information into Marketing Cloud. Because these details ideally you can see under Firebase, because Firebase is I can showcase what it is exactly. So Firebase is Google's console ideally. So what it just I don't know how many have worked in Firebase, because Firebase is the one where Google provides an open space for all the developers to create a project and then using their connectors, apps. Because once you create an application in Google, what will happen is you have a lot of comfortability to add multiple plugins. You can leverage Google, you can leverage their Google navigation service, you can leverage their Google Maps, Google APIs. You could use a lot of services what Google provides. As everyone knows, how AWS works, the same way all the independent cloud distribution systems works, pay-per as you go model. So once you add the project, once you create a project, once you create a project, it'll ask you what is the project name, and it'll ask you your all details about your Marketing Cloud messaging settings, your sender ID, your legacy server key. All these available in Marketing Cloud once you create an application for Android. So this sender ID and SDK initialization, so you can set all this. Go to new project, navigate cloud messaging under settings, legacy server key and sender ID, legacy server key app in Marketing Cloud, and provide the sender ID to the SDK. Start initializing with the complete set sender ID method. So once this is done, ideally, you can start with implementing the SDK in Android. So the same kind of a concept. There are some prerequisites for Android as well, which include the module level settings. As every developer has some idea about what is an SDK repository. As I said, both the apps requires an SDK. Without that, we can't able to communicate, because Marketing Cloud already done a lot of headache. They've done a lot of job for us. We just leveraging their SDKs, the repositories to go and then use all the repository, all the dependencies. Once that is done, they have to set up this task Firebase, and because it has their complete module GRAIL file. Because if anyone works with the Firebase documentation, right, so it comes with a dependency to make your entire module GRAIL file, which include Google.Firebase with Firebase core, the version of Firebase. So initialize SDK, download an SDK from Marketing Cloud SDK, and just copy this code. As I said, the same kind of authentication. once it is done authentication, so you have to test the push notifications. But before that, every company, every time, it'll ask you the data protection and privacy policies, because you have to manage these inside your application or the project. The same way how we configure in iOS, you have to do the same thing in Google as well. So it has some different kind of support privacy modules, one with right to be forgotten, restriction of processing, do not track. So all these three are the fundamental principles of Google's data protection privacies. So each and everything has their own policies for right to be forgotten. So ideally, you have to be let them know, saying that because if they want to register the app, when they delete the app, it has to be go to the marketing cloud and then you have to delete their contact identifiers. Because if there's a settings actually, so if they delete that data, if you can't delete the data, what will happen is, so if customer has a right to file a data protection case from you on this company policies, and then they'll have a responsibility. So make sure you should define what is your privacy mode. Based on that, you have to act accordingly. Otherwise, it will be a different story altogether. And after that, and once you have SDK, right? So people has to understand what kind of information which you can do. You're gonna have push notifications, analytics tracking, inbox, geofence, and background messaging, configuration changes. You can do all these things with the respective right to be forgotten security policy what you chosen, because it has a contact from the server. Because once you register with the app for Android, so automatically people should know, okay, this guy has been registered, the app has been registered with right to be forgotten policy. So ideally, when it'll register and it will register, and then the subscriber will be connected with the server, and you can able to send some silent notifications, and you could send some inbox messages to them, right? So after this, so you have to start with device and contact registration. So there's a device and registration contact is required, and this take at least 5 to 10 minutes of time to register and propagate it through marketing cloud service. And it is a completely works with the basic of REST principles. I would recommend to have download this SDK and then start putting all the registration work and identifying with currently it's 8.x. Currently, initially it was 6.2, 6.7, 7.2, 7.2, 7.6. So different kind of versions has been elaborated, but currently it is 8.x. So you should see how the contact key has been identified, how to retrieve the contact key when you're sending a messages from mobile app, and define some more attributes based on the registration process. And you see, right, I use the longer term 7.x, because 7.6 I'm defining the attribute with different ways, but in 8.x you see I'm setting the attributes, but there's no, you have an option to set the attributes and you have an option to different ways to clear the attributes. But here I just have simple registration manager.edit, and previously it's been upgraded with little quite good, because now I have an option to map the attributes and then respectively assign to variables as well. And once it is done, so you can have all your SDK code to offer the defined article categories, any headlines, entertainment, anything that you want to push some messages, the developer can take care. And ideally, if you want to do a lot of keyword stuff, so you can do a lot of stuff in Android as well, because iOS you can't do all this kind of things. Android have a lot of flexibility as compared to iOS. So this is how which you can register the SDK with Android and then test the connection with Google. So I would recommend to have these two SDKs, which is available under GitHub of Marketing Cloud. I would recommend everyone to go through and then understand the steps and work with your app development team, because they are quite clear. They know all the steps. They're very comfortable, because the people have idea about both the development, Java development, as well as iOS development, which is Java completely Android. But iOS, people use Xamarin, people use different kind of concept. They use for front-end interface, they use nowadays Flutter for migrating. They use their Xcode for complete code repositories, implementing all the project, right? Because simulation work, Xcode is perfect version than what I feel. So your developers know all the steps. You just need to support them to create an application in Marketing Cloud and then provide the respective app token, access token, and all the details. That's it. So everything has to be developed by mobile app team only. So this other notification is here. Development Xcode, how you can test this SDK with Xcode, production distribution list, handle URLs. There are different kind of things where you can implement the push notifications. There are some push notification, custom sound, interactive notification, rich notifications, open direct, custom keys. So the app developer has a quite clear understanding what needs to be done. But ideally, as a first step, we will just configure the push from registration to sending a contact to marketing load. That's it. Everything after that will handle in marketing load itself. So those two are really, really important, ideally, in provisioning of apps to mobile push. Okay. So like this, using mobile SDKs of iOS and Android of Marketing Cloud, we are going to connect with mobile push of Marketing Cloud. Right. Step number 2. That's good. We have able to connect the Marketing Cloud. What next? What you have to do is, once you acquire the certificates and server keys, it's time to get to work on your application. So as I said, right, we need to support always both the platforms, Android and iOS. So you have to go to the mobile studio. Let me logging into it. Maybe you can have a better idea about how to create an application. Okay. Let me stop. Let me get my credentials. So I'll logging into it. Well, so here I'll go my mobile studio. So as last time we discussed connect, now we'll discuss mobile push. So ideally in mobile push, as I said, right, so we'll create an application in mobile push as described in Marketing Cloud documentation. So you get right, because currently I don't have any app has been configured with this account because it's a demo account for me, and ideally people will go to the administration panel and they'll go and then start with so I'll go and start with a creation of an application, but ideally I don't have that option currently because I've not registered with anything, but people will have an option here to go and then register your account once you have the access of this mobile push in SDKs. Once we provisioned it, you have an option to create an application for this. You can register for an application for this account, but fortunately I don't have this. Let me go through the presentation. So what essentially is going to be happen is, once we provision this step, once the provisioning of app has been done, you have an ability that you can go and then create an application. You can create an app with mobile studio. You can go to the mobile studio, the mobile push, right? There's an administration panel where you can select the create app. Once you choose a create app, there is a certificate that we have taken from Google team, right? And the iOS team, the P8, P12 certificates, and Google's our key Firebase. So we use those keys to enable the optional setting under the custom sound, custom key, open direct, and interactive notifications, as I said. So what I can do is I'll just add the icons and I'll put all the configurations in Marketing Cloud, which include the access token, app ID, endpoint, and account Marketing Cloud ID. So as a developer, we just need to configure those in SDK because we just need to create an app and then hand over all the information back to the developer so that they'll connect with Marketing Cloud. If you look at SDK, right, when you install SDK, in SDK code, they'll ask you for authentication class. They'll ask you your app ID, your access token, endpoints, and account MIDs, nothing but Marketing Cloud IDs. We just need to serve all this information to the app developers. Then they'll be able to configure it and make sure the certificate that what we have downloaded, we just need to browse the certificate details and then we have to create it. For iOS, we need not P12, P8 certificate, but for Android, you just need to take the Firebase ID. So automatically it will give you a complete provisioning, and then we will get the respective endpoint details about auth details about the application. So once that is done, we just need to start the integration with Marketing Cloud SDK. So now the app is created in Marketing Cloud. So it's time to integrate with mobile SDK. So as I said, right, it's Marketing Cloud offers mobile push SDKs for both which contains all the collection of files that makes it easier for us, because 60% they do, 40% that we implement all the time, and we just need to share the relevant SDK with the teams and pass the access token and points and all the details. After that, what they do is they'll go and then start with, as I said, so this is a guide for both implementation, iOS and Android. So it is always good practice where you can see how to enable SDKs. Ideally, that is a code base, and this is where you can have both are completely aligned. So you don't need something to be allocated. You can just use the same thing. I can ping this as well. Use this information as well, and then let them handle all the work, and you just support what needs to be taken care from the development perspective, right? The most important that what we do is data model, right? The thing is, mobile developers ask you, boss, I have a registration panel, so how do I pass the attributes? I've showcased in a code, right? How to add the attributes, how to set the attributes, and then assign that attributes to specific variables in Marketing Cloud. So what you do is you have to create a mobile separate data extensions, or else I would prefer to leverage the provided attributes from a contact builder. Because if you look at Marketing Cloud, right? Marketing Cloud Mobile has the inbuilt parameters available, inbuilt data extensions available. Normally, I leverage those. If I require more as per the app behavior, then I'll create a custom attributes, and then I'll have a relation to Salesforce Marketing Cloud, a contact builder, and then I'm going to submit the data model to the respective team. But if I want an additional attributes, as I said, so I'm going to create a separate attributes in the mobile push demographics table in Marketing Cloud. So you can go to the contact builder. Ideally, those mobile push demographics you can see under your contact builder. So details, you can look at your contact builder. We have the schemas, everything available, right? Because this contains attributes. This contains all your, let me showcase that. Look at your mobile group attributes, right? Mobile push data, demographics. So I personally feel like this is enough actually, but if customers really require to collect some more information based on their app behavior, I would prefer people can go through and then just to add all this, just to add some more attributes based on this. Okay, so so this is how it looked like, because everything is contact ID, subscriber key, which has all the demographics. So ideally, device ID is really important, and device type and the first name, last name, whatever it's required. If you want to create some more attributes, click on create attribute, and then just to add the attribute and then make relation. And after that, these are all the subscription based. I use mobile push subscription for all the users data, because once they install the application, once they download the app, so we know which application they install, device ID, opt-in date, opt-in method, and all the details. And for tags, if you want to tag anything related to an app, I would prefer to have a mobile push tags as a data extension. So ideally, use the same demographic for every app. I personally believe don't create more attributes that creates a lot of confusion. Let's leverage the existing attribute, the mobile push data, and let's leverage the same data model. Okay. So just handle this. Just let the mobile app developer know I want a respective first name, last name taken from mobile push, and any opt-in data that they would like to serve, use this mobile subscription table. That's it. Don't do more stuff. Don't encourage anyone to create a separate DE to manage all this. There is a concept where people can go and try to integrate with their different kind of topics. Sometimes people don't use mobile SDKs and they want to use a custom API kind of a route. With this also, I would prefer to have a custom APIs to do with the same data extensions rather than creating a separate DEs, right? So this is how the data model for mobile push look like. And that you have to hand it over to development team as well. So this is how I explain how the mobile push data look like with the respective contact ID, which is linked to your mobile push demographics, subscriptions, as well as your opt-ins, right? The final step, how to test this application, the main important thing. So as soon as your SDK has been implemented, right, and configured, so what it does is you can see the screenshot I've taken here. So as soon as the app has been configured and started, what it does, you'll see the app name, what I've created, and you can see the respective type. You can see The NTO retail is an app name. That app name has how many number of messages you created. I create one message, the message name, and I created two apps, one with Squads app and the other app which is expired recently. So you look at all the messages received for that app, and you can see how many messages have been delivered, how many messages have been opened, and what are all the opt-ins, total number of opt-ins so far, the number of contacts, what is the growth rate from day to day. So this is how they look like. And the second is the how many number of sends you have done from the mobile app, mobile push, and the location details also, where the location, where you've sent the notifications to which locations. So this is how the look and feel of mobile push is going to be happen. And pretty feel this is quite good and quite interesting also. If someone implementing it on end to end, person feels like it's more comfortable, and he really happy. Okay, something I've done for sure on the SDK perspective, right? So this is how the system flow look like ideally, but people looking at a technical perspective, how everyone has some brief gaining knowledge about, okay, people think that, hey, I mean, how this entirely works, because funny you said SDK, because my work is very low as SFMC developer, but app team does a lot of stuff, but I need to understand how this app and app complete workflows works, how an app can be communicating from Marketing Cloud to, the iOS Android application. What is the real integration interactions works? What is the system flow? And what are all the important parameters which we can consider? The important parameters that you consider as device ID, very, very important. Without this, I think we aren't able to move forward, because device ID plays a crucial role in mobile push, because that is an identifier which whether we send the notifications or not, because it's equivalent to email address in Email Studio or mobile number in Mobile Connect. Without this, I personally feel contact ID is a big subscriber key in mobile push. That plays a huge role. After that, status. The status makes a complete presence of your subscriber activeness. If a contact has been registered and then he has been flowing to the Marketing Cloud, so and he, by default, we make it as an opt-in, likely that the user permissions were not correctly passed to the Marketing Cloud. But if the status is not active, the belief is the opt-in is out. That means in Marketing Cloud, the status plays a huge role, because it's an opt-in status. In Email Studio, Mobile Studio, everything is opt-in. The opt-in status is something which you totally consider. But in Email Studio terminology, I personally call okay, what are all the number of opt-ins has been done for this so-and-so campaign. But in mobile, it's not like that. So in push, it's always saying that, okay, how many statuses have been configured so far. It's ideally like an opt-in in mobile push. The most important thing, people really understand funny how a token can be generated and how the token can be sent the notifications to related devices, and how the token generated with respect to both Google and Apple. And if the user agrees to send push notification setting, because there's a setting, right, in your mobile app, each and every mobile app when you download, if you can go to the device location, if you can go to the different settings, so there's an option to send messages to agree the push notifications, right? So how SDK works really with the Marketing Cloud, how the settings and Marketing Cloud stick together. This is what the flow. So the customer, ideally we can see that the builder app, the customer register app for push notifications is here, register for app for push notifications to the mobile operating system vendor. It is Android, iOS, the same flow. It's nothing changed. They register app for push notification. So they enable, yes, I receive app for push for respective app. They'll immediately go and then contact mobile operating system vendor. What mobile operating system vendor does is you'll get a notification. So what mobile operating system does is they'll send push credentials back saying that issued successfully or something. And those push credentials will be uploading into Salesforce. That's where we get to know the device ID and the app and device ID and the registration details. So that we can come to know, okay, this has been registered as a contact in Salesforce. After that, the device, once you install the device, what will happen is once you install an app, so app registers to receive push on user's device, because you install a push notification, you have an accept terms and conditions policies over there. You can have an accept, they'll ask you, right? Access your contacts data, access your push notification, access your service location, access your, so the device will send you different kind of settings altogether, where I personally choose opt-in, yes. So automatically, once you choose all this, so you have the settings to be stored in the backend that gives you, okay, this guy accepted the push on user device. The token has been issued immediately from OS vendor to the device. once it has been issued, the token has been sent back to Salesforce, because the device accepted, operating system vendor accepted, then the Salesforce will okay to create a contact in Salesforce, and we will trap the entire event as a worthy. Then push worthy event trapped, and we'll construct the payload, because I got the payload, I'll construct the payload, and then I'll send the notification back to mobile operating system vendor. Once I send a payload to mobile operating system vendor, immediately vendor will send a notification to the respective customer, the device. See, right, how the entire flow works between all the four systems: customer versus Salesforce, marketing cloud versus mobile operating system vendor versus device. So this is what the flow look like, because people think that it's very quite easy, but a lot of stuff has to be done. All this done, heavy lifting has to be done through mobile SDK. And people think that the token, right? So the token has to be generated every time, because operating system vendor and device works together to get all the token. Because when the token has been expired, I don't believe it never expires until unless you change something on app. Once you delete an app or change something on app, once you create an app in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, it doesn't expire all the time. Okay, it never expires. So the token also never expires. It's not like until Salesforce, like a token will be generated every 24 hours, and every request, our token has to be called and then get the request and then send the responses. It's not like that in Marketing Cloud. Once it's app registered, so it always gives a lot of comfort for you. Until unless you deactivate the app registration, deactivate the app, that's something you have done it, then that's a different case altogether. So this is how the flow look like in Marketing Cloud push notifications. And before we go to the platform pitfalls and any surprises, let's see how we can create a push notifications inside Marketing Cloud, because now we understand how we create an application. But unfortunately, I don't have that thing that I would like to showcase. But I'm pretty sure that I'm showing something good for you guys. Let me see. So two things where you can create a message in Marketing Cloud. One with from panel of mobile push. Here a create message. So there's another concept where you can go and then create a message via content builder. Because in content builder you have a concept of creating in-app messages, SMS notification template, in-app notification templates, right? You can use a group connect as well. You can create this mobile push notification. So here you can add put some messages saying that, hey, KWIT, subtitles, anything. You can have some personalized anything. You can have some beautiful messages as well. You can have your own device ID. You can have your own personalized transcript variables. The message, you want to put message, thank you for giving us this important session, and put your open behavior, open the app. So when I click on it, if you want to open the app, go to different URL, web URL, cloud page. You can add the cloud page also, because when you click on this, so taking you to the respective behavior, right? Open the app. So you do have an option to choose Android, Apple Watch, short look, long look. So you have all this information. You can see it. And if you want to subscriber behavior, you can choose a subscribe list from your data extension as well. And that gives a lot of comfort for anyone. You can go to the editor, back to the editor. And like this, you can create your mobile push notification. It's very quite simple, right? So it's very easy. It's a lot of, that's where the Salesforce Marketing Cloud, the beauty of Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Of course, there are some competitors, but I feel it's really worth it to have it for every marketer. And you have some settings also, which you can change your description, custom keys, and everything for messaging properties. Put some tags also as a best practice always. So remember, team, put always the tags. That gives a lot of comfort for all your marketers, and that tags gives a lot of best practices, the org-wise best practices, right? So this is how the push message will going to be designed via content builder. But unfortunately, I don't have some access. Sorry for that. But as much as I can see, I can definitely show something good, right? Let's go back. Let's see how respective pitfalls is going to be happen and the surprises for Mobile Connect. Well, configure Mobile Connect. It's not always like a normal complete breadwinner kind of roadfall, but always it has their roller coaster side. Even with the limited configuration, what we have in Marketing Cloud, So it's extremely helpful is number one SDKs. There are a few considerations team that needs to be taken care before we provision the mobile push. We always feel that, okay, let's hand over whatever we need to the mobile app team, and mobile app team does all the job. Of course they do it, right? They do it, but for testing, right? Contact key is some of the code snippets in mobile SDK. I shown you the passage of the contact ID to a respective variable inside your handler class. Those areas where you see the contact key is playing a primary role in marketing cloud. It's a king, right? It's always a king, first of all. When SDK adds a contact to marketing cloud, right? So what it does, it'll assign a random unique ID as an app user normally, because it's unidentified app user, which marketing, the app team will assign a unique ID. Essentially, let's suppose if I'm a user, right? When I register it, when I download the app from marketing cloud, when I download the app from my app portal, what it does is, so it'll create because I'm a user, I've downloaded it, I've entered registration, first name, last name, Fanindra, first fanindra@test.com, my address so and so, my mobile number so and so. I click on register. First time I register with one of an app, Kolkata Bit Group. Okay, I gone to other area. What I've done is I use the same. I downloaded some other device. I have two iOS. I downloaded second device. I enter Fanindra, my same first name, last name, and I entered, because you really don't know what is your functionality inside your registration panel, right? Because you take an email ID as unique, but people use different email address altogether. They use the same mobile number, right? So, and I use the same details. The second user also have the same almost near matching details with the differentiation of email ID, right? So in that cases, what essentially is going to be happening, because there is the same user, automatically what app team does is they'll assign unique ID for me for two, because I have two users with different email address. It will be assigned random unique ID for me, because this is for unidentified app user, because this app user is not identified, because I've never accepted the terms and conditions, I never accepted the notifications, and I never done anything, right? So essentially it's a kind of duplicate kind of a thing, right? So what it does is, if you ask my user to register again, so the SDK will automatically set the correct contact key. What will happen is you put a lot of validations before you identify the user. So what we recommending is, ideally, so ask your developer to set the SFMC set contact key for iOS and delay registration until contact key set for Android. People take some time to delay the registration process or whatever it is, but it's always good to not to make any duplicate users inside your app. Use these methods, especially set contact key and delay registration until contact key for Android and iOS. What these functions does is they'll hold of contacts. These functions will hold of adding contacts to marketing flow until you have been until you have been able to set the contact key. You can do by returning the contact key when verifying a user's login credentials, right? Once you registered and once you log into it, now then that's the time where the data will be traveled to marketing cloud. That's where the relay registration class will help you out to put some time and then send the device to marketing cloud. Unnecessarily people will install and then they don't want to log in it, right? So ideally it'll create a lot of mess, and at the same time they don't accept the app notification terms, they don't accept the geolocation terms. So all these things as a part of settings where you have to leverage these kind of methods. This is the number one. Point number two, token. Token play a huge role in any of application, irrespective of marketing cloud or any other. As mentioned, without the system token, without the authentication from marketing cloud, I'll not able to send any push notification, right? Because the token has been generating from OS vendor when an app user agrees to enable push notifications, right? If I'm not enable push notifications at the time of send either any of the devices, obviously there is no token, there is no push, because you have not agreed the terms and conditions, right? There is a class called notification manager class. It's readily available. It's a part of SDK again. So what it does is it will overlook your implementation. Normally, I personally feel when first time I'm designing this entire, because I basically come from a background of both iOS and Android developer. What I done is I do SDK all the time. I configured my Xcode. I'll inject my SDK. I'll put all the configuration. I'll put the routing settings, everything. But sometimes what I does is I always feel the customer is king, and then I feel that, okay, this guy will enable, because once you register an app, by default, you can't able to tell customer that, okay, it's already enabled. It's not like that. So you always ask the customer that it's a kind of a privacy policy. You always ask customer that you have to enable the notification if you wish to, right? Sometimes people don't enable it, and sometimes people don't really like to receive any notifications from the mobile platform, right, or app. So I always overlook this kind of a manager class called push notification manager class. So what it does is, before I'm going to implement or raise this question, so there is a class for both Android iOS developers. Will guide them pretty easily how to implement these manager class for opting of this enable push notification service for all the customers. So the user has to agree to enable push notification service, and this notification manager class will help them to understand before anything, anytime when they access the app, this will put some pop-up, hey, just enable, hey, just enable, right? Like that, we should make sure to ask or to raise the consent from the app perspective for the customers to enable this push notifications to get real updates. That's where we'll get a subscriber, right? This is very important, everyone to implement this when you start implementation as well. Third thing, I always look overhead saying that giving some more permissions. Well, we always think that, okay, I given all the permissions, but there are quite simple things where I do some mistakes all the time, because when I build a manager class and then I'll ensure the mobile app is requesting enable users to allow push notifications, and that does not happen automatically in iOS, right? Like in Android, because it's always important to start implementation with covering of all the basics, which uses the geolocation, inbox messaging, or ensure all the users to leverage the app is asking for user permissions, because that is what the key, right? If the user won't give a permission, then obviously what is the purpose of implementing SDK? What is the purpose of updating all the code? But again, with this also, you have a good concept of course, everyone know when you install an app, it'll ask you location, it'll ask you inbox messaging, it'll ask you personal data and all the stuff, right? So it's always good, as I told before session, this is a message manager class, push notification manager class for making readily available leverage for making them understandable. Second thing is geolocation. For geolocation also, when I want to use an app where it'll ask me a pop-up saying that I enable geolocation for more better updates. So there's another messaging method called enable geofencing messaging method, and iOS Android methods available where you could leverage these methods to make it more comfortable, because always we feel like these steps will definitely missing out. All, of course, the documentation gives you all the details, but unfortunately we can't able to make it work out, right? Because we're not a pros at there are things which we really don't know as well, right? Third thing, contacts, importing contacts into mobile push. So as we alluded everything, when new contacts adding into mobile push, unless they use a new developer app, most likely they want to use existing app users, or they coming from directly. We ask when you do migration from one system to another system, let's suppose use Braze from longer term and you purchase Marketing Cloud edition. When you start implementing Marketing Cloud mobile push, you shut down Braze, and this Braze you're going to export, you're going to migrate all existing contacts to Marketing Cloud. So what you do is you can enable all existing contacts with mobile push, put it into all the contacts or any other different list, different data extension, but make sure when you migrating any existing data migration data into Marketing Cloud via mobile push, all these four attributes are required: device ID, system token, platform, contact key. Without this, don't ever never ingest the data into contacts or any other data extension, because as I said, device ID is the king, which without that we can't able to send push notification to any of the customer from Marketing Cloud platform, right? All these are really really important. And the last thing is, it's very rare where people think that there are high chances of when you send a push notifications to include call to action. You see, right, when I create a message, the inbox message showing as what you required. You required in-app notification, you required cloud page, you required something open direct to be opened or any other thing. But ideally what will happen is, if you want to include, let's suppose customers, when they click on the push notification, so you want to redirect them to landing page or a specific page in app. So all these options available in mobile push, as they're not included as a part of SDK, you have to deliberately define those while creating a message, right? So fortunately, Marketing Cloud have a solution. We don't have any high-level code effort has to be required. It is just an option of choosing while implementing your different protocols. So both the protocols available for Marketing Cloud SDK and handling delegate protocols, customizing options as well. So if you want to add some more options, so there's an option for Marketing Cloud SDK which you could use seamlessly, and just design some push notification links as well. But it doesn't require now because this I've just added as a part of thing. But for now, here you have open behavior available. This has been customized recently, means very long back, where you could leverage those as well. Right. So that's what I think we have covered the platform demo as well, fortunately, with all this. And there are some resources I would prefer to go and then leverage these three. I'll share these resources with you as well. So you can, I've already sent iOS, Android messages, but I'll share it with this also. Right. So let me see if anyone has any questions before that. And again, I think it's just exactly an hour. Thank you, team, for giving us this opportunity again. If anyone has any questions, especially on this code level, please feel free to ping me so that I'll help you out, because pretty much I understand the process, which include, I work in both Google, iOS, Android in my previous experience, working as an app developer and building some CTA plugins with this for both the SDKs. So if any help, I'll happy to help you out. Right. Let me see if anyone has any questions. If not, I'll hand over it to Kathy so that she'll go through it.
Thank you, guys. If you have any questions, please ping in the chat. I will note down the questions and take it to Funny. If not, we can close the session. Okay, I believe there are no more